Broadcasting live from the BBQ Central Radio Network studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the BBQ Central Radio Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
All right, welcome back. Coming up on 14 past the hour, 877-448-0433. Greg at the BBQCentralShow.com are the two ways to get in touch with me. My first guest tonight has been having a very good 2012 in regards to competition. They scored a 4th overall at the ACM Barbecue Throwdown a few weeks ago. Finally captured that elusive first Grand Championship this past weekend in Wildomer, California. Hopefully I said that city right. At the Ultimate BBQ Showdown East versus West, the 3rd edition. They are currently 5th overall in KCBS Team of the Year points chase. And here to talk about this past weekend, none other than Pitmaster of Leftcoast Q, Matt Dalton, joins me here on the show. Matt, how are you, buddy?
How are you?
I'm doing absolutely fabulous, Matt. I appreciate you taking time out here for the show. Now, look, Matt, I mean, we talk about length of teams and how long you guys have been on the circuit. I guess you could say you're a relatively new team. So before we jump into this past weekend and break down the event itself and the categories, you know, the West Coast is becoming more and more relevant on the competition scene, not necessarily a place you immediately consider to be a barbecue hotbed, but you and a good handful of other teams out there are doing your best to change that mindset. Have you always been into barbecue, or is this something that you just decided to get into a little bit later in life?
It's something I decided to get into a little bit later in life. We started out in 2010. We took a class from Meyer Mixon, and after that class, 3 weeks later, we went and picked up a pit from him in North Little Rock, Arkansas. And right from that point, we were hooked. There was 228 teams there. It was a Smoke on the Water event, Ronnie Cape's event. And after that, we came back to California, and it took that backyard level to the competition level. It changed my whole mindset of thinking about barbecue, and that's how we got into it.
Matt, how did that first competition work out for you?
What's that?
How did that first competition work out for you?
Oh, our first competition, we pulled off a reserve brand. Now, mind you, we did about 8 practices our first time out, okay? And we did fire control, flavor profiles. We worked on a lot of things before we stepped out of the gate there. We were ripe. I mean, we had practiced our brisket. That was the first Wagyu brisket I had ever cooked. They had cooked a lot of primes before that. Went right in cooking that there, and we pulled off a first in brisket out of 54 teams. Right at that time, it was a state record. Okay, so talk about being sucked in from that point. We walked home with 2 5-foot trophies and like another 2-foot trophy, reserve grand, 2nd in ribs, 8th in pork, and 34th in chicken.
Yeah.
But so from that point on, I mean, you talk about being sucked in like a coin off a floorboard with the shop vac, we were sucked in.
How do you guys come up with Leftcoast Q as a team name?
Well, we were on a friend of mine my teammate Mo Lyons. We were on a flight back from Georgia actually, and we were talking about being serious with this. And he's the money backer, and I'm the cook, and that's how it's always been. We both said to each other, "Are you serious about this?" Yep. We're going to dedicate it, put everything into it. And from that point on, we started throwing around names. It came out, there was a lot of West Coast stuff, and he said Left Coast, and I said, that's it. I got on the phone with my dad, designed the logo basically almost over the phone. I told him I wanted a big Q with the state of California. We wanted to represent California as we got better, go other places that is an identity to California to us,
All right, Matt, so let's go ahead and break down this past weekend. As I mentioned at the top, you were able to grab your first grand champion after a number of reserves. You look back, how did the weekend go for you in general, and was there anything out of the ordinary that you had to contend with?
Nothing really out of the ordinary. I will say our hearts were a little heavy there in Wildomer. A really good guy that had laid a lot of groundwork here in California named Brent Walton, queuing for you, passed away. So that was on a lot of people's minds there, and I do want to put out condolences to Ken and the rest of the Walton family. And I mean, the guy really, he mentored a lot of people in the state of California and elsewhere, and I just wanted to put that out. So that was kind of on my mind. The cook went normal, as that always, you know, we always go there with the same game plan. We go there, we roll out of the driveway, we go there thinking we're going to win. Now, I don't mean that in a cocky way,
right.
But that's the mindset we have, you know. So the chicken, we've kind of scaled back on some of the rubs, and we're trying to achieve a little bit of a lighter color. That happened, and we also landed our first in chicken.
Yeah, I was going to say, Matt, let me, if I could just interrupt here just for a second, as we look at the categories individually here, as you just referenced, you take first in chicken. You know, as you were turning it in, you say you were making some changes to it. Did you think it was first place chicken as you were running it over to the judges' tent?
Okay, well, no, you know, not necessarily. I thought it was first place. No, I knew it was good. And my taster, my other teammate James Miranda, he always tastes chicken. When he bit that chicken, it spit juice right onto his shirt. So that and this was 7-8 minutes later, probably, I don't know, maybe 10. But when that happens, I know that the chicken's going to be juicy when it gets to the judges' table, and we've done fairly well in California. We won Chicken Team of the Year here in California, so I know our flavor profile works, and we're pretty much achieving bite-through, juicy chicken every time. So did I think it was first? No, because there's so many good teams, and I talked to judges after contests, and I asked them, you know, what was your, not like I'm showing them boxes or anything like that, but when I talked to them, you know, what was the best meat of the day? Oh, chicken. I mean, probably at the last 10 comps. So chicken is by far probably the closest, toughest category in California.
Are you a team, Matt, that before you turn stuff in, you taste it, and if so, you will season it up one way or the other if you think something's lacking, or you just turn it in?
You know what? Most of the time, I just turn in, or I'll take a very small piece. I'm just, you know, you get to the point, you've done so many contests and eat so much barbecue, it's to the point where you don't even want to put any of it in your mouth, even if, you know, but I always taste a little bit, whether it's just a little piece, a little chunk here or there, or I'll have my teammate taste it, and they know teammates taste it, they know the flavor profiles. More or less, I'm concerned about putting juicy pieces into the box, as far as like having that meat leaking, you know, not wet, but
right.
or waterlogged, but, you know, cooked correctly, you know.
All right, so you take the first in chicken, so obviously very happy with that. Good way to start off awards. You got a little bit of a momentum going. Ribs are up next.
Right.
You get a 4th overall in ribs, so definitely a very good turnout for the number of teams there. Were you happy with the ribs?
Right.
How did they turn out for you that day?
Oh, I was happy with the ribs. I probably sacrificed a little bit on appearance, but I put juicy ribs in the box, and they were really nice and shiny, and they were good flavor.
Are you a spare rib guy, or are you a baby back guy?
Spare.
And are they St. Louis trimmed?
Yep.
Okay.
St. Louis cut.
Good. 4th
nice
overall.
And symmetrical.
Yeah, of course, right? How many do you get in a box these days?
Well, it depends. Sometimes I'm throwing 10 in there. Sometimes I'm throwing 8. Sometimes when I have the big meaty ribs, you know, I can, you know, I only run a small band of parsley on the side, and, you know, if I could put 12 in there, you know, I was talking last week, and we were in Vegas with the R&R Barbecue and Pigskin, Scott Nelson, and he said, you know, I'll put as many as I can in there. Same thing with Darren Worth. When we met him, he said, this is a meat contest. Fill these boxes up. You need more meat, you know. So I like to, you know, meet these people. That's what it's about to us, meeting all these wonderful people around the country. And I mean, I could call them up. We're going to cook in Iowa this year, you know. So we do fill the boxes up.
All right, so you got 4th overall there. You had the first in chicken. Pork comes, so you get 10th call. So, you know, 3 calls out of the first 3 categories, so that's nice. Were you satisfied with pork? Did you think there was something a little bit lacking?
You know, that's kind of been our weak spot this year. It's been our strong suit before. It's something that kind of goes up and down. It got called in Vegas, you know, and I've been building the same box probably, I don't know. That box has done well in Arizona. The last couple of years I've cooked in Mesquite, and we built boxes there. Same thing. Here, in Vegas it got called, but here it was 10th. I thought it looked better than 10th to me, but it was a call, so we were happy with that.
All right, then you move on to the fourth category, so brisket. What ends up being 14th overall, but of course you don't get a call. Where did the brisket come out for you? What do you think?
I thought it was pretty good as usual. That same brisket just landed in second place in Vegas out of 111 teams. So I mean, I think maybe it could have been maybe a little more done. I don't know. It was pretty soft to me. Sometimes that flavor works, sometimes it doesn't. I gave it a little dip. Sometimes I haven't dipped. I added. There's a big thing going on the Brethren right now about burn ends, and I put them in this week. Maybe I should have left them out. I don't know. They were in. I put them in Vegas. Who knows? It's such a crapshoot. It's such a fickle game. When it comes down to that last brisket call now, mind you, Big Papa Smokers they have a second in chicken right behind us. They have a fifth in ribs right behind us. Right. No pork call, and now a first in brisket. So we're thinking, and then there's a smattering of other teams that have got calls. So I walk over to them. I'm telling them, I think congratulations, you guys got this.
Well, yeah. So I was going to say,
lo and behold, they get called in 8th.
Well, that's the thing that I always find.
How it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I always find that fascinating about competition barbecue. We're talking with Matt Dalton, by the way, of Leftcoast Q. I was going to say, I imagine the overall awards kind of set up pretty tough for you guys. You get 3 calls. One of them is a win. You see some other teams getting called fairly consistently through individual categories as well, like you just mentioned. Did the no call in brisket freak you guys out the closer they came to calling Reserve Grand and Grand Champion, or did you think at all that you had finally broken through and gotten that elusive GC?
A lot of people started kind of looking at me, and we've been there so many times, Greg. That was our we have 7 reserves, and we've been in that position so many times. I mean, it's
always the bridesmaid,
right?
At
that moment, I was thinking, hell, I don't know if we have this right now. I thought Big Papa's had it, but then when they got called 8th, then it kind of opened the door. But I still wasn't thinking. Once they started calling the teams that had good calls in front of us, or the lower calls, then I was kind of thinking, but it's still not until they spit our name out of their mouth was I going to believe we won.
Now you take the overall, what ended up being like a 6+ point lead, so pretty convincing victory as competition barbecue is related. It's not a half a point or 0.05 of a point or anything like that. Having been in that bridesmaid instead of a bride seat so many times already. Would it have been a disappointment to get another Reserve Grand? Would you have been like, geez, what does it take to break through?
No, not really, because you know what? It's we've been there so many times. Yeah, I mean, like I was saying earlier, I want to win every contest I go to, But that's just not reality. We know better than that. But that is the mindset, There's so many good teams out here in the West. I mean, it's just. Not just California, you got Arizona too that are in the top 5, right? Or the top 20. I mean, I know it's early in the season and the Midwest hasn't gotten fired up yet, but when you're putting yourself up there right now, you're giving yourself a better shot at the end of the year. We're looking at about, I don't know, probably 20 comps. Will that be enough? I don't know.
Now, does getting that first Grand Champion give you any more confidence moving forward this year, or is it just kind of a notch in the belt?
Yeah, it gives me confidence. It's like every cook. I pick up these little adjustments, just like from Vegas to here. What can I do different to make that end product the best piece of meat that judge can put in their mouth on that given day on that table, And that's I do that at every contest. And, sometimes we'll change up even a rub here or there, or a little slight adjustment, but. Yeah, it gives me confidence going forward, knowing that it's the damn monkeys off our back now. We're finally in that crowd.
Floodgates have opened.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, but we've had a lot of calls at a lot of contests. This past year, from when we started out, there was probably a almost year period there we didn't have a Reserve Grand. We had a lot of mid 3rd, 4th, 5th. But we got that second, we back-to-back Grand at Bakersfield. So we're going there again this May to try to wrangle away a big Weber. The trophy's got a Weber grill on the top. We're trying to wrangle that away from Dave Malone, who's been grand champ there 2 years running. So we have a little battle with him there, and that's where our roots lie there in Bakersfield.
Matt Dalton joining us here on the show, pitmaster of Leftcoast Q. You want to check him out online. Leftcoast and then just the letter Q, leftcoastq.com is the place to go. You know, I've talked to a lot of pitmasters this year, and you just mentioned it when we were talking individual categories that, you know, it seems a lot of people have been having a little issue with pork. And I guess my take on it, just from hearing people talk, because I don't cook, is that maybe judges are starting to look for something a little bit different flavor profile-wise than what has been winning in the past. Do you have any take on that at all?
I think so. Maybe it's trending. You know, out here, maybe it's trending to something a little spicier as opposed to sweet. I don't know. Our pork's been up and down. I mean, we've had a couple first. We took first in pork in Mesquite. We've cooked well in Nevada, but over here in California, the pork has kind of dived off, or it goes up and down. And this last weekend, I just built a different box. Actually, I put 14 pieces of money muscle in there. Wow. Now, maybe that was a mistake. Maybe not all of them were as good as they could have been, but it still took a call, and it looked really good. And I think there's so many ways to lay out pork. It's got to have that eye appeal. Something different that stands out is going to get you that good appearance score. But, I mean, it's got to be moist and juicy, just like all the other categories. It's got to stand head and shoulders, whatever's next to it, you know.
Are you still cooking on those Jack's Old South cookers?
Well, we switched up brisket. We're cooking brisket and chicken on a Mac pellet head.
Yep.
And then we're doing our pork and ribs on the Jack's Old South. We're cooking on pecan, and it's a big smoker. I mean, we usually finish our brisket on there once it's in the foil, but the chicken we cook straight on the Mac.
Let me ask you this question, Matt, and you don't have to answer honestly if you don't want to. It seems that there are a lot of competition barbecue classes that have been spawning up 3-4 years now, and you get some guys that might have experienced a little bit of a success, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, you hear they're teaching classes. Is that something that you guys would be interested in doing? Would you teach a competition cooking class given the amount of success that you have had over your short span in the circuit?
You know what? It's something probably down the road. Eventually, I would think about something. I've had numerous people ask me, and they've told me they would take the class. My take on that is, you got to be a proven winner, and not just one GC or one area. I mean, you got to be able to, in my mind. Now, some people may feel differently about this, but if you're going to teach on that national level, give you an example. Rhythm and Q out of Arizona. They've, got 22 grand champions, 18 reserves. They've cooked all over the country, and they've done well. That's someone that carries prestige, a lot of respect for that team like that. You get what I mean about that?
Yep.
In my opinion, you've got to have clout. You got to have more than just one GC or a few reserves to really go out there and prove to people or show people this is what it takes to really win. There's teams here in California that have taken a smattering of classes, but maybe, some of them are getting a little mixed up. Take Johnny Trigg class, a Myron Mixon class, a 4 legs up, or, I'm just being generalizing here. Take a bunch of classes and then they end up like, well, which way to go now? You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. You got a lot of different forks in the road. We're talking with Matt Dalton from Leftcoast Q. Matt, we got about 45 seconds left here. You're sitting 5th overall. Long way to go till the end of the year. But, towards the end of that year, last quarter, if you're still in it for Team of the Year, will you make a run for that title, or are you just going to let the chips fall where they may?
Oh, absolutely. We would make that run for that title. We got a few contests coming up here towards the end of the year. The big Ronnie Cates one in November out of Laughlin. I think there's 3 in October. There's a few in December. And they're all out here, so we would definitely try for that. I'd like to also thank our sponsors, the Rub Company and the Meat House out of Costa Mesa. And I would also like to thank you, Greg, for having me on. I listen to your show all the time, and say hi to all our friends and family out here in California and Arizona.
Yeah.
And, the rest of the country.
Where are you going to be?
Yeah. Pleasure being on.
Where are you going to be competing at next, Matt?
Our next contest, Long Beach, May 12th. Then we go to Bakersfield, Boulder, Nevada, Costa Mesa Christie Foundation, great contest.
Yep.
Pechanga. So
full schedule.
Then we're going to Iowa in July. So
cool. You got a full schedule coming up. We're talking with Matt Dalton, pitmaster of Leftcoast Q. Matt, appreciate the time. Thanks for coming on tonight, buddy.
Thanks a lot, Greg.
Yeah, you got it. There he is.
Talk to you later.
Matt Dalton, Leftcoast Q. Yeah, great dude. Easily had half an hour left to go with him, which only means bad news for him because he's going to have to come back on and do another show. Matt Dalton, leftcoastq.com.